So in today's video I have come to my local forest because fog, and I brought out my 28 to 200mm, which I talked about in last week's video. It's such a practical lens. Wide angle, well, not super wide angle, but wide angle all the way to telephoto. The first composition I found here, straight on, well, it's not really straight on, it is a bend in a road leading into the moody, foggy forest. So since it is winter and basically all the snow has melted within the past 2 days, we've just got some really like moody and almost like grim conditions, like here in mid-February, which is very typical Danish February weather. And it just gives such an eerie feeling to the photos that I really like. So as I said, I'm walking around in my local forest and just playing around, reacting to what I see. There's not a whole lot to it more than settings wise, f16, ISO 100, ISO 50 maybe even sometimes. There's not a whole lot of wind here today, and then just the shutter speed is whatever it is. It's not super bright here, so I do get fairly long shutter speeds. Here you can see the composition I'm working on, very traditional. I'm using the road here, coming from this corner down here, leading in, filling up the lower part of the frame and leading into the photo, making a bend which makes sure I go from down here and all the way around the photo, and then you start to explore the forest up here in the background. The one thing to be aware of is, as you can see here, when I walk to one side or the other, the trees have a tendency to overlap. So I'm walking a little bit back and forward just to make sure I get the optimal composition. The fog is actually really thick today, which is not super common in this forest, which just means that there's just compositions everywhere. Of course you have to work a little bit for them, but generally just nice, moody, maybe even a little bit airy compositions because of the fog. I'm not entirely sure yet if I'm going to process them a little bit darker or a little bit brighter, high key way or whatever. However, in this particular case here, I am simply just shooting straight on down this road, using the trees here on either side as framing just leads you into the photo. So one of the things I didn't see, which can maybe be a little bit of a problem looking ahead, is that making everything so easy for myself with a 28 to 200mm is that I can't spend time explaining you why I changed to a 24 to 105 or 70 to 200 or something like that. So I guess my videos are bound to become a little bit shorter in the future. However, I have come to a part of the forest where I've moved a little bit away from the trails. Like it's a time of day where there's a little bit too many people, and even though I do not mind talking in front of camera, in front of other people, it can be a little bit distracting anyway. So I've come to part of the forest where I am simply just trying both some telephoto shots, long focal length and shorter focal length, like 28mm, simply just to get the entire forest in. I'm not entirely sure what works the best here. There's a lot of just like straight lines, but due to the very thick fog, they vanish quite fast. And with the wide angles, usually I try not to incorporate the sky in my forest photos. But I do think that the thick fog, or the fog, is thick enough so that there might be a good gradation from the background fog in between the trees and then up onto the sky, so you can't really see that big change from, well, the forest to the sky. So as much as I enjoy these moody conditions, I gotta admit, I am looking forward to spring, and when all the wild garlic will pop and will just dress the forest floor in like white fluffy flowers. Can't wait for that. It's gonna be so good. So if you haven't seen my main review video of the Tamron 28 to 200mm lens, be sure to check that one out. I go a little bit more into detail with this lens. But walking around here in the forest and just taking photos right and left, it kind of does live up to why I got it. Yes, it does suffer a little bit from chromatic aberration, a little bit soft edges and some fringing, but in regard to the focal length and the general sharpness of the lens, I really only see myself needing this lens walking around doing forest photography. And I don't really need those extra 4mm in the wide end, surprisingly, but I don't. I see myself zooming in all the time when I do forest photography. The same in this case here. I'm at 70mm again, just to get that perspective compression in the scene. So compositionally, you can see I am using a combination of the trail leading into the scene and the trees and of course the fog to give a sense of depth in this photo. The biggest thing in this specific composition is, as you can see if I walk a little bit forward, you can see how the tree here and here get a little bit more separation from these two trees. And if I walk back, then those trees are hid behind the front ones. So that is generally what you want to be aware of with forest photography, and especially with a lens like this. Zoom in, zoom out, go forward, go backward, to see how the perspective changes and the compression of the scene also change. So a few general words on the photos I caught in this video. This day didn't deliver the most incredible photos I've ever taken, let's just agree on that, but it served as a really great day of practice for really hammering in how important it is to check the separation of the trees in your scene. It can't stand alone as there are several factors for increasing the aesthetic value of your photos, but for me this is the golden rule of forest photography, and one which is notoriously important to be aware of as to avoid those points of tension in your scenes. It's just so annoying to get completely optimal and rare conditions just to come home and see there are several points of tension in your photos which will bug you each time you look at the photo, and it's even worse knowing you could have avoided them by moving a few centimeters left, right, back or forward. Even though I didn't get the best photos on this day, it was really nice to, just get out, and also of course got a confirmation that this is something you need to be aware of in your photography. It definitely came in handy, as you will see in next week's video, where I got some incredible photos too, so be sure to watch that one. So as I said, if you haven't watched my in-depth, in the field review of the Tamron 28 to 200 millimeter lens, be sure to check that one out. There is a link in the upper right corner. And if you're interested in even more composition for landscape photographers, be sure to get my ebooks. I have my 2 free light versions also via the links down in the description. Be sure to check those out. And if you like those, you can of course always go ahead and get the full versions. Again, I just have to say a continuously thank you to all of you who get my ebooks. Just seeing the light of 2020 and everything in my job and so forth. It is you guys who get my products, enroll in my Photoshop course, who get my ebooks, buy my landscape photography maps. Even though you can't even travel, it is you guys I need to say a massive thank you to. And of course also a thank you to all of you who do watch my videos. It does give me a little bit of ad revenue here on Google. If you enjoyed this video, I would highly appreciate a like. If you didn't like it, be sure to hit the dislike button twice just to be sure, and leave a comment. And I think that was that. Nice little outing here in a moody forest.